Thank you for
Hey,
joining
how
me
you
today,
doing?
man. How are you?
I'm fine, man.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah,
Look, on today's episode, I wanted to chat with you today about pushing on and, moving forward and talking to you
yeah,
about shifting culture and creating change.
yeah,
And these seems to be quite prominent themes in your work and the way you have been like in your career. So tell me, when you broke up with your band,
yeah,
just a band, this was a
yeah,
challenging time for you and
yeah,
also a big turning point. Now, with setbacks and delays throughout your career so far,
yeah.
do you see them as denials or a part of a bigger plan and a bigger picture for you?
I think it's sometimes it looks like denial or it's disappointing in that sense because it wasn't even maybe a breakup is a bit. It was a hiatus. Well, that's what
Okay.
we called it.
Right.
And but it felt like I was dropped, like I was in the wilderness somewhere, and I just had to figure out where I want to go next. And yeah, it's like that was 2012. We'd released like 3 albums with just a band, and they'd like really been groundbreaking pieces of work for the scene here.
Mm.
And then now it was time for me to just start making my own moves and making my own mark as an individual. And I think it's always difficult for people who've been in bands to forge out and make a career as a solo artist. But then eventually I found my footing, and I've actually been enjoying it since. It's like I've been able to do so much.
Mm.
It's like that was 2013. 2013, I was selected for One Beat, which is a fellowship in the US. And that just gave me the right confidence that I needed because the selection process was not very, they were taking in 25 people from around the world.
Mm.
And when I got in, I was like, oh, you still have it. Then the rest is history from then.
Right. And so the things that you were facing at the time for yourself, I guess because I guess you were confronted with what you needed to overcome within yourself to break free as a solo artist. I mean, what were those? What were some of those, I guess, limitations or that you were confronted with and had to sort of face at the time?
I think for me the biggest thing was just self-belief, It's like when you're in a unit, you feel like you're a part of the unit. So anything that I was contributing, I was feeling like I'm a cog in this beautiful wheel. But then I didn't know that if I could do it by myself, And then that was like the first thing hurdle that I had to overcome is just believe in myself that I could make things work. Also, that has also just taught me about having your own vision and being very clear on the vision and how you execute it, because that's what separates like really good work from work that people will forget easily. And then like just trying to work on the bar was really high on the visual side as well with just a band. It was like extremely high because you have 4 really visionary creatives making. And so we used to shoot our own videos. We used to edit our own videos. We used to make our own music. We used to make our own art exhibitions. And in that context, you could probably see why it was a big challenge for me.
Mm.
But then eventually I just started slowly doing my own thing. And fortunately, a lot of people and artists who are really good in their own fields, like visual artists. There's an artist called Osborne Masharia. I don't know if his work is amazing. I'll send it to you.
Please.
And he hit me up to collaborate on stuff. There's another artist called Zakadel, who's a graphic designer.
Because they started seeing your solo work coming out, and then they wanted to collaborate?
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So it's like that also just really helped me. And ever since I've been fine.
So it's taking that initial step, isn't it? Really, like it's about like moving forward and seeing that you are capable. Believing, like you said, believing in yourself and making that move to And I guess once you start, when you start, it starts to flow, and
exactly.
and you start to see the pieces of the puzzle of what steps you need to take and what actions you need to do. So I guess that would have been really daunting for you, particularly when you're working with a group of people and everyone's able to do all these moving parts, and then I guess thinking, I've got to do all this on my own now. I guess that would have been the big challenge for you. And again, and when you find your own voice and you find your own rhythm, it starts to come through. And when you do that, people start to gravitate towards what you're creating as well. And that's been the trajectory since for you, right? You've been just nonstop doing that. So was that during 2012 when that turning point happened, or Okay.
That was 2012. That's when we released our last album as a group, and then everyone just started doing their own thing.
Did you find during I guess those limiting beliefs or the challenges? I mean, what are some of the things that you would do to kind of overcome them though? Were there any kind of methods or things that you would do to help you with that, or was it just purely just identifying that it is a limitation, and then you just kind of like busted through it? I mean, was there any kind of technique?
I think it was a limitation, but the cool thing was I never stopped making music. And so because I really enjoy this, that's one thing I really enjoy. It's like I enjoy making music. I enjoy exploring different sounds. And that was the thing that I started doing first, because that's what I knew how to do.
Right.
And then in doing that, I just feel like, man, I can do this. And that's now what set me up for everything else.
Pushing on with creating was the process, and then through that you were then able to sort of figure out a new direction and a new vision. Right?
Exactly.
Right. I mean, what are things that you do, and even now, all these years later, what do you do if you're stuck on a thought or a feeling in the morning? What's something that you do? Is it purely just going straight into the studio and banging out something, or?
Yeah. It's funny. Yesterday I was watching there's a song that I'm about to release. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I do on Mondays is I'll just go to the studio and I have the TR-808, the Roland drum machine. Mm-hmm. And I was just making sounds off of it, not really because I knew what I was going to make, but because it's fun for me to play with it. And yesterday when I was looking at that video, I was like, because it's written, the video is titled Monday Gibberish. And it's like, that gibberish is what's helped me make the new song. So it is one of the things that I always do, even when I'm stuck, is remember that I started doing this for fun before I was doing any shows, before I was being paid, before anything. Is I just used to enjoy making sounds and playing sounds and coming up with all these different things. And even just the 808 itself, just consider, and I was telling a friend of mine that this machine technically was not made for African music in that sense. I don't feel like that was something that at the back of their heads they were thinking that, oh, this is one day going to be. Because I've seen documentaries on it. I've seen how it's been used in hip hop, how it's been used in electronic music. And there's no conversation about it being used in African music. And I was like, man, you really can get a lot of traditional sounding African drums off of this. But with this, it's a sound that we don't have it in that sense. But we do have rhythm. We do have they have percussions. They have tones like mid tone, high tone, low tone. And like those are things that we've always used in making music. So when I was messing with it, I was like, yeah, let me just experiment and see where this goes.
Is this also part of like? Because I know that creating change and creating and shifting cultures even comes down to the production processes as well. Like what you just explained now, the drum machines would, being so electronic and away from, I guess, more organic drum sounds. I guess that's why people. So even from a production point of view, would this also be like, okay, well, no, this is another way of doing African drums and African beats. Is
exactly
that? Yeah,
exactly. And I'm not even trying to fault the people who made them because I'm using it and I'm enjoying it. But it's like a different chapter of the story, It's like when you see when you watch a documentary about how something started, when you see how hip hop started, for example, and then you trace it back to jazz and funk, but if you go back down to the root of it, it comes to African music.
Yeah.
So I do feel like a lot of these things are cyclical, but it's also sometimes that the point gets missed because when it comes to African music, there's like a pigeonhole that people have put it in for a long time. So for me, it's always like, man, I want to, and not even purposefully like change that narrative, but in my story, I want to flip the narrative. So if it ever goes somewhere else, that's cool. If it doesn't, that's cool too. But like, I want to do something that makes me happy and is different and also is like as impactful as all the people that I've always looked up to. It felt like their music made a difference in my life.
So it's more of it's not so much a like it's more of a conscious and I guess a belief that you have within yourself and about what, like, in the creative process, in the projects, the way you work. This is kind of like a sort of a common sort of thing about, just kind of not consciously trying to flip it, but just being aware that there is another way of telling the story.
Exactly. 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 Because I do study, a lot of music from a lot of different parts of the world. And if you think about even what's being considered as African pop music now, because there seems to be like a cool thing with African music going on, where it's like 10 years ago, you'd not hear as much African pop as you'd hear now. But if you go back to the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, those artists were, to me, very innovative, very experimental. They were pushing back the boundaries. It was not like we give you a very small dose of the coffee. If you listen to Fela Kuti's music or King Sanyade, those were like 10 minutes of a song with very different peaks, like chill points, like chord changes, things like those. But it ended up being pigeonholed to world music.
Yeah.
And even for a long time, even now, it's still like world music. But what does that mean? It's like this box where you put rappers and jazz musicians and all these people. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. It's amazing how it's good to see that term is being pulled apart, and it's not as like you can see a shift in the way people perceive music from around the world now. It's not just
exactly.
And that I think has a lot to do with it's a sign of a change in time. And you're absolutely right. African music in general has really changed in the last 10 years. It's become so international. I mean, the Afro beat now is like everywhere. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
So you're a TED Fellow. And in 2018, you were named to the Yerba Buena Center of Arts in the top 100 list of people for shifting culture and creating change. We spoke about it just now, navigating a new path, exploring where else African music can go. Tell me a bit more about it. Tell me more about your, I guess not from just the music, but from the projects and your work, that this narrative is within like your work, change, with creating change and shifting cultures. Tell me more about that.
Yes. Sometimes it's like, wait, they gave that to me? Because I'm essentially always just doing my thing.
Right.
but I think maybe at the heart of it, sometimes what they see when they put me in these lists is that I'm always gonna be trying to see what's the next place to go to. I remember when we started making music here, like there wasn't anyone doing what we were doing as a band and essentially as a solo artist. And then like fast forward to now, and there's so many different artists who are trying out so many different things. I think I can see how us being bold enough to be like, no, this is what we like, this is what we want to make, also helped other people get to see that. And it's like like making electronic music, making funk, making jazz, when you would know that this is not what everyone will basically want to hear, because also what radio plays here is very one track, I feel. And so everyone tries to make something else that sounds like the last thing that was the big hit. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And so I think maybe that really does help change how people see things or how people hear sound.
Right. So this like getting this title and being coined as an innovator with sort of in modern times of Kenyan music and African music of moving making change and shifting culture. This is purely like people have seen this through just like the way you're flipping things, I guess, and is that
accurate? I think it's accurate because I'm always flipping things. I've been sampling a lot of old traditional music and giving it a more urban feel because again, I always say that there's a lot of music that slipped through the cracks because it was not what people wanted to hear or it was not in the format that they were used to. And so having sampled a lot of music and then people are like, oh, okay, so that's what they were trying to do. And then it makes them go back now to the original where the sample was taken from.
Yeah.
I'm listening more keenly. I think I like that because we have such great artists who people missed out on because they were just not paying attention.
Yeah. And I noticed that there's quite a big American influence, American artist influence on your work. Would you say is that more prominent than say like African or Kenyan music?
It's a good mix. So if there's I think there's times when I've had a lot of influences from other places as well. I remember there's a time when we were coming out as a band. One of the first shows we played was with a German group called Mode Selector.
Yep.
And we played in Berlin. And I saw how those guys were playing with just machines. And it blew my mind. I think that just it literally changed my life. So there is an American influence, but I don't think that that's the whole influence range. It's like I've been influenced by like traditional dramas. I'll send you some new music that I'm working on that is actually very influenced by our sounds here. I'm just a music person, so if I hear something that I think is fun and interesting, it will jump into the pot of influences.
Right. But it's not like, I mean, is it one of your things that you kind of want to bring Kenyan music or Kenyan artists to the forefront? Is that part of the mission as well? Like when you describe your purpose in with music, or is it more just about creating just good music or both?
It is both.
Right.
It's both because for a long time, when people were asking what's Kenyan music, you probably didn't have a reference of what Kenyan music sounds like. But now, if you search for Kenyan music, there's a lot of Kenyan artists.
Yes,
and I'm glad to have been able to be a part of the movement. To be like, yeah, we do have a sound, and but also for me, it's just when I go to the studio, what sound is gonna come out? Like 2 weeks ago, I was at a friend's house. We had a lot of drinks, and so I was out, and they decided to bring I was like, I can't drive, so you take me. They're gonna get me their driver to take me home, and the driver was playing some music that's from the countryside. And the only thing I could do was remove my phone and record this sound, because I was like, I like this. Like, why isn't no one in the urban music scene doing something with this? And then the next day, I went to the studio and started making like drum patterns based off of that. And so it's like so yeah, my next project will have a lot more influences from here, because I do the more I make music, the more time I spend making music, the more I understand that it's also, we do listen to a lot of music from elsewhere, but I don't know how actively we consume our own sounds and what that sound could sound like if it's pushed to the next level. So like I found such great rhythms, and I can't wait for you guys to hear where it goes.
I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned earlier, even with your with the band and throughout your music career, visual arts has been very important to your music. Not just with the music videos, but art in itself, the visual aspect of combining it with music. Tell me more about this, like, because I see that it's still very important for you now as well.
Yeah, it is, because where the world is right now is music really goes hand in hand with the visual side of it. So you'll go to a Flying Lotus show, and it's like the visual aspect of it is very, very strong. And it's like as strong as the music. You go to any big artist, they understand that. And then you look at, let's say, Beyonce, for example, her new visuals have been very, very influenced by African textures and African colors and African dance and African bounce. And so I'm like the guy who designs a lot of my album covers, my CD covers, is always like, where next are we going to take this? And I can't, it's something that we're very strongly considering even now for what the next rollout for the new project will be, because it really helps the music to have strong visuals.
Yeah. Are you working with many different artists, or is at the moment one particular artist?
I am. Like, there's a lot of really great artists in Nairobi on the visual front as well. And I think eventually, sooner or later, people will get to see and understand that that is something that Nairobi is very good at, because we get to see artwork from everywhere else. It's just, I always say it's a small country thing, where big countries sometimes are it's very hard for you to have a say if you're coming from a small country. It's like, it's very hard for me to make a huge impact in Nigeria, but it's very easy for a Nigerian artist to have a big impact in Kenya or the smaller countries, because they consume so much of their own and they project so much of their own, and it's amplified by the populace. They have such a big footprint on the globe.
What, Nigerian music has a bigger impact worldwide than Kenyan music? Is that what you mean? So therefore, and so it's more well received in Kenya than Kenyan music?
It's a mix of that. It's like they have, because it's so readily available and pushed elsewhere.
Right.
We get to see so much of it, and sometimes then they get to hear what is happening, for example, in Kenya, because we don't have as much of a presence in the country.
Right.
Is it making sense?
Yeah. So because I guess the infrastructure of the industry, infrastructure of the industry in, say, Kenya, and the impact that it has had on the world before, has a history of being stronger. So therefore, it
in Nigeria.
In Nigeria, yeah. So therefore, that has translated across the continent of Africa.
Across the continent. I mean, even across the world.
Yes, yes.
There's so much of their art everywhere. I think probably one of the countries that I would say is a small country that has a big imprint is Jamaica.
Mm.
Yeah, because it's like
decades.
They have such a big personality, but also the music is really great. And so I think now, because of the prevalence of connectivity and the internet, I think there's more of a understanding that African music is much more than just Afrobeats. There's so many different sounds that every other country has. And I think it's at a much better place than it was 10, 20 years ago.
Absolutely. But you can say that with various countries across Africa at the moment. Like the music. I mean, just looking at Burna Boy, like his career and what happened, how he just like went massive.
Yeah.
And now, like, I guess that's I would say a common thing that I've noticed is that and I guess this is probably what's happened with Kenya as well, is that localized people are because of the internet, people are focusing a lot on their own sort of communities and focusing more on, like, I can speak to thousands of people just in my own country before I can even speak to the rest of the world. And
exactly.
And because of the internet, and because of social media, and then that narrative starts to spread, like that. Yeah, once it's more solidified in their own territory. And I'm seeing that more and more.
Yeah, a friend of mine was telling, this is Ethiopia, which is also a very big country. Mm-hmm. It's like they literally do not know. They love their own music so much that their artists sometimes, or at least the big artists, will never need to travel anywhere else to go play because they're so well received at home.
Wow.
And you look at concerts in Ethiopia, they fill up stadiums. Like,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So, with continuing with your love of visual art with your music, you mentioned that you're documenting a lot of film and photography at the moment because you're working on your own movie. Tell me about the theme and concept around this.
I'm still working on it, so I don't have like a super concrete theme. But what I've been doing is just like really pushing my eye, because for a long time I used to be like on the road, seeing all these different places. And one of my band, the guys who plays keyboards in my band, is an amazing photographer. And there's once where I think it was some time last year where I couldn't travel with the band, so I was solo.
Uh-huh. I
was like, wait, I'm seeing all these great things, and because Joe is not here to take photos, I can't. So I went and got a camera and started taking photos, and people like really started commenting. It's like, yo, you have a good eye. So
have you put them out somewhere in particular, like, or have you been doing your own sort of photography exhibitions, photo exhibitions? Or?
No, not yet, but I will. I can send you a couple of photos.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, but I've just been like really enjoying that, and also even when I'm working now with the visual artists on what the next visuals will be, I have a very strong sense of what I want to say. and how I want it to look. And so that's helping me towards this goal.
Well, how do you incorporate that into your sort of a live performance? Like, what format are you using the visuals, and how are you incorporating into a musical performance?
So just before the pandemic hit, we were working on a live visual show, like for the DJ sets.
Mm-hmm.
So
which I think we spoke about that in February. When I was wanting to explore having you coming over here in Dubai. We were talking about that. Yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah, and then it's just ended up being even like a way. We're now talking with. There's a team I'm working with, and we're working on how to make this come to life. And I think it's gonna be really amazing. It's like we still don't have all the bolts and nuts tightened yet. I think this year, to an extent, has just been so exhausting. It's very hard to always be creative, and like a lot of ideas that I thought were really gonna be great at the beginning of the year, we've had to put in the back burner because it will come, but maybe right now we just navigate
getting through this. This. But are you working on some ideas now like that, like in preparation for when things start to open up?
In preparation for the new EP? Yeah. So, like, we've literally even selected, and the way we've selected the album cover is just I once saw this very strong visual online that was taken in the 50s in Congo. And I've liked that visual so much. And then, as luck would have it, one of my friends who I've collaborated with, this band called Saronde, he posted it on his page, the photo I'm talking about, and apparently his uncle took it. I was like, wait, what? I like this photo. So he introduced me to his uncle's estate. We're actually now in the process of just finalizing having it and using it for the cover. But it's when it comes out, you'll see it's a very strong visual.
And when are you expecting to release this new EP?
I would love to finish it this week.
Excellent.
So that it can be out in December, because it's I think it'll be good even for me, because I've been making so much music, and I want to go back to the old ways of guerrilla making music, where I finish it and I release it.
Okay.
But yeah, because now it's like you have to have strategy and all these things, which is cool. But I also like the old way of just, I think
get it out. Just get it out.
Get it out. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think when, and I would say this kind of hit me when we were speaking earlier, when, with pushing through and showing up, just like getting on with things. When you start to think about too much of processes, you get caught up, trying to resolve, sometimes it's just about like getting the project done, and those answers and all those kind of questions of how to do it just starts to fall into place anyway, so
exactly.
Yeah. So that strategy that you're sometimes we can get so caught up in just strategizing and, how many likes am I going to get? How many followers are going to look at it? And then you forget about the art, you forget about the process,
And what, to be fair, like one of the things, okay, maybe not to be fair, to be honest, one of the things that I liked about being the band when we were doing stuff earlier was we'd wake up and be like, tomorrow we're gonna shoot this video. I would have a plan for it. I would go out with the camera, and so it was like a ragtag army. And we shoot, edit, say, announce online this Friday, a new video is coming out. Boom. And it's like, eventually one day what happened is we released a song that became so big that it was Kenya's first viral video.
Yeah, yeah.
And there wasn't a lot of all this planning and it's like thinking about who do we reach out to. It's just, we made the video, we edited it well, we shot it, we released it, and then things just happened. It's like people saw it, they related to it, they shared it, they made memes. They like those such a strong. It could have looked like it was such a big budget thing, but it didn't cost us a lot. So when sometimes I'm talking with music people and there's all these grand plans about this and that, I'm like, actually, you are talking to someone who has also seen what it's like on the other side, where you will just be brave and release work, and then things happen. So that's for me is part of the magic of making art in this day and age, where it's like if people really like it, they run away with it, and it's a way better plan than having like mood, like all those strategies pinned on a wall.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there is something to take away from, like, with a project. There are certain things that we do need to put into place so that it can get out there. But you're right.
Exactly.
Once you've done that, then the project and the music will do all the rest of the talking. So
exactly,
and it will gravitate. Because sometimes there's a fantastic music out there, like what you were talking about before. There's all these, African artists or Kenyan artists in particular that no one's ever heard of before in the past because they didn't have, I guess, the resources, or they didn't know how to get their music out there, and they slipped through the cracks. And and again, like even now you're seeing all these reissues of all this amazing African music, and you're just like, what? That was made in 1981. It's like, and that's because there's a record label that has the infrastructure, that has that click of a button that can get it out there, And,
and they like it. I like their plans, but sometimes my observation is like, it's good to have the plan, but also things can change.
Yes, absolutely. It's about being sort of open to the possibilities of, I guess it's about sitting, like, not being so caught up in the strategy. Like, you need those things, but you got to, if you're too far, it's kind of like it's like the yin and the yang, kind of being in the middle of in the middle of it. Well, so this documentary that you want, is this something that you want to get out in the next few years? Is it?
Yes, it is.
Okay, great.
In the next few years, probably 3 to 5.
Okay, excellent. Well, it was such a pleasure talking with you, Sellanga. Tell me, tell the listeners where they can, find you on the usual sort of links online. And
you can find me on Twitter. It's Hey Blinky. On Instagram, it's Blinky Bill Music. Okay. On YouTube, it's Blinky Bill. And on Facebook, I have a love-hate relationship with Facebook. But
don't we all?
Mr. Blinky.
Okay.
Mr. Blinky Bill.
I Yeah, go on.
Are you South
Sorry.
African?
No. I'm Australian. This is why when the name Blinky Bill came up, I'm like, what? It's like, I'm from Sydney. I'm from.
I think it's funny. I've never played in Australia. Oh, I was supposed to play there this year, but then, it went out the window.
There's a guy in Melbourne who handles a lot of African artists, a Kum agency.
Yes.
Yes, yeah. I thought you guys might know each other.
He handles my South African gigs.
Right, yeah, because he does a lot of work in Africa as well. So he does a lot of shows there, and he's a good lad. Good lad. Well, look, once again, it was fantastic finally getting to chat with you in person. And, let's stay in touch. And please share that music with me. I'd love to put it on my radio shows and get it out there for you. Yeah, happy to support, man. Love your stuff.
Thank you.
It's great stuff.
Thank you,
tell me, am I saying this right? Mungu halali.
Mungu halali. Mungu halali.
Did I pronounce? I think I pronounced it right.
You pronounced it perfect.
Awesome. No, I love that. I love the phrase. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
All right, man. Take care. It was once again, awesome.
Great to finally chat in person.
Yeah, man. Peace out.
Cool.